You're welcome.
Okay, so um, and then I got your first and last name and spelling and everything, but just to confirm, we can use for the super below aviation expert. Is that fine?
Yeah, you could say if you want former airline pilot, aviation expert,
Okay,
whatever you want.
got it. I'll make a note of that. All right, so let's talk about, these issues continue to persist, and I mean here locally as well as, as we've been kind of following it, and everybody's been following it. Um,
Mhm.
what, you know, why? And it looks like it's kind of concentrated mostly to Delta. How come they're not like fixing this quicker than maybe people expect? I mean, is there something else going on here, or what's your take on that?
Okay, first of all, realize this is not the problem of any particular airline, that there was a software manufacturer that had a Windows software program to keep hackers out, and they put out a bad release, and over 8 million computers crashed because of it. So the airlines were hit particularly hard. And here's why it's so bad for the airlines. It's because um, when they have enough cancellations, they get to a point where the whole operation falls apart. And I can tell you in just a second why that is. What happens is you've got air crews, flight attendants, and pilots who have certain duty hours. And if they exceed the duty hours or they exceed the amount of flying time in a week or whatever, they're illegal to fly. Meanwhile, the airplanes have scheduled maintenance from time to time. So it's a real dance getting pilots, flight attendants, and airplanes all in the same place, all at the same time. If any one of those three components is not there, the airplane doesn't take off. So what happens is you get this cascading effect that some flights gets canceled, then more flights gets canceled, then the crews are illegal and they can't fly it, and you've got so many disconnects that the system really does fall apart. So what airlines do then is most of them have these programs for putting the operation back together after it falls apart, and that basically involves canceling most of your flights and then starting with a smaller number of flights that can be reliably operated, and then adding to it from there. So that's a process that Delta is going through right now, and sometimes it hits an airline worse than others. But that's the process they're going through right now, and they are scrambling to get as many flights going as possible. But if you try to push it too fast, then the system falls apart again. So it's a dicey situation.
You know, is how does a company like this kind of learn? Is there like a redundancy maybe they can build into their operation, or or is this kind of like it is what it is? We just got to deal with it and roll with the punches.
You know what's going to happen is from time to time the operation is going to fall apart. I mean, there's like huge weather problems like great big lines of thunderstorms in the eastern US, or tornadoes and hurricanes, and or more likely software issues. So these things are going to happen from time to time, and some airlines are doing better than others as far as putting it back together again. So there is a real knack to putting it back together again, and it's not easy. I mean, there's going to be thousands of crews in the wrong places. You've got to reposition it. It's a big deal. So some airlines do it better than others. Obviously, Delta will learn from this and do it better next time. But they're scrambling. They're trying the best they can right now.
In terms of, responsibility, I know a lot of consumers are angry because they're not getting compensated enough or at all, and they're kind of wondering, where should we go from here? Should the responsibility lie on the airlines? I mean, from your standpoint, like where does that kind of play
Yeah,
out in all of this?
yeah, because I was a pilot at an airline that the operation fell apart at once, and it took better part of a week to put it back together again. I mean, this is not a quick fix. It really does take a lot of work. And I would just say that all the government officials who are bad mouthing Delta are doing no good whatsoever. Delta is highly inspired to get the operation going as fast as they can. They didn't create the software problem that started this whole cascade. They're just in the process of putting it back together again because of the disruption from the software program. So I wouldn't blame Delta. I would just say, well, they weren't as good as the other airlines for putting it back together, but they're scrambling and trying to do it as well as they can right now.
So so you've been through this before. So this is not something where, because people, they're looking at like, hey, I have a flight coming up in like late August or, maybe in like September. Should they be kind of worried still, you think? Or you think you're pretty confident that, an airline like such as Delta can kind of get through this, quicker
Yeah,
than
to give you an idea, I had a 20-year flying career and we had one meltdown during that 20 years. So it's not that common a thing. So I would say go ahead and make your reservations and plan to fly whoever when you want to. But it's not that common a thing. But when it does happen, it takes time to put it back together. And that's my point. And the airline is not being cavalier. They are scrambling as hard as they can to put this thing back together because they're losing a ton of money. They have these airplanes and crews sitting on the ground. They've got to have them up in the air to pay for themselves. And so the airline is hurting. And to point fingers and say the airline is responsible is incorrect. I think the airline is a victim of the software issue, and they're not doing put the operation back together as quickly as the other airlines. So they're not doing it as well, but they're trying as hard as they can because it's costing them a ton of money.
leads to, you think Delta will, maybe in the short term increase prices will kind of be a little bit higher just so they can recoup some of that costs, or, they'll just, obviously like they'll catch up eventually, right?
Yeah, it usually just turns out to be a hit to their profitability for the quarter because what happens is what you can charge for the ticket depends on the competition. And if the competition wasn't hurt as bad, you can't expect them to cut the prices. So, it's one of those things. Although if their reputation is hurt, they might have a sale just to get people back on their airplane again. So that's a possibility. You can watch for that.
Okay. Hey, anything else you want to add, Peter?
Yeah, I'm just saying that I've been through one of these things. I know it's not the airline's fault that it happened in the first place, and the airline tries as hard as they can to get back going again. So it's not like they're just cavalier. They are really trying hard to get back in the air again.
Got it. All right.